Welcome to a Veil of Crime. Some crimes do not fade because of their brutality, but because of what they revealed. In 1957, a quiet Wisconsin town walked into a nightmare they didn't know had been living among them for years. Not a killer hiding in the shadows, but a man shaped by isolation, obsession, and a world narrowed until reality no longer reached him. Ed Gein did not terrify America because of what he did, but because of what law enforcement found after it was already too late. Edward Gein was born in Wisconsin in 1906. His father, George, was a violent alcoholic, and his mother, Augusta, ruled the family with rigid, fear-based religious absolutism. She believed the world was corrupt, especially women, and she isolated her sons so completely that her voice became their only moral reference point. When the family moved to a remote farmhouse in Plainfield, the isolation became total, geographical, emotional, and psychological. After his father died in 1940 and his brother Henry died in 1944, Augusta became Ed's last anchor. When she died in 1945, his world collapsed inward. He preserved her room like a shrine and withdrew from the world entirely. He did not learn to live without her. He began trying to replace her in ways that were not grounded in reality. Gein began reading anatomy books, medical encyclopedias, and pulp magazines about death. He claimed that he would enter a trance-like state where he felt drawn to the recently deceased. He began robbing graves, not to destroy bodies, but to possess them. Over time, the remains were not simply taken, they were refashioned. What he built was not a trophy collection, but a surrogate identity. In 1954, tavern owner Mary Hogan vanished. There was no body, no suspect, and no resolution. Then, in 1957, Plainfield hardware store owner Bernice Worden disappeared in broad daylight. The last receipt was signed to Ed Gein. Deputies approached the Gein farmhouse expecting a possible murderer. They found something far more disturbing, a house that reflected a mind that had broken long before. In a shed behind the house, deputies found Bernice Worden's body, decapitated and strung up like a deer carcass. When investigators went inside the farmhouse, they discovered objects made from human remains. It was no longer a residence. It was a psychological landscape turned outward. The documented evidence included skulls used as bowls, facial masks removed from corpses, chairs upholstered in human skin, a belt made from human nipples, lampshades crafted from preserved flesh, boxes of noses, gloves sewn from skin, preserved heads, including Mary Hogan. This was not a house decorated with death. It was a failed reconstruction of identity. This was not sadism. It was erasure. Gein was not trying to dominate the dead, but to become something through them. He was trying to rebuild what he could not psychologically replace: his mother, control, and identity. Gein confessed with no resistance and was declared legally insane. He was institutionalized instead of imprisoned, and he lived the rest of his life under psychiatric care until his death in 1984. His crimes became the blueprint for several cultural horror archetypes: Norman Bates in Psycho, Leatherface in the Chainsaw Massacre, and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. He did not become infamous for the number of lives he took. He became infamous for what investigators found when they looked inside of his world. Some killers frighten us because of how many lives they take. Ed Gein frightens us because of what he revealed: that isolation can hollow a person until nothing is left but imitation of what was lost. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe memory is a form of witness, subscribe and return for the next chapter, because some truths survive only when we keep telling them.